civilians in Bucha killed. And so on. They increased sanctions, and city of Mariupol is destroyed, and war is still on. So we realized sanctions are very slow, the speed, because every day here on the ground matters. The decision was to go to the top level CEOs, kind of one by one, with a petition letter asking to stop all business. I think one challenge is to analyze who works in Russia. It's a huge country, huge economy. So if you ask question, what are the global banks working in Russia, you come up with a list of a few hundred banks. And then you go sector by sector. So we went to a lot of CEOs asking to stop business, including companies, including stock exchanges like London Stock Exchange, like investment funds. We went to different jurisdictions, not only US, but obviously UK, Switzerland, Monaco, Singapore, and other places. I personally did maybe more than 1,000 letters. We were writing updates on who stayed and who still keeps working in Russia. And also for companies and CEOs, it was really important to know the situation, because I think people didn't realize, especially in the first day, that this scale of war and this scale of crime is happening in Ukraine, in the middle of Europe. So we put together a package kind of detailing the crimes and scale of the war. And this is still ongoing work. I think now a tsunami of sanctions started, and some of these economic bullets, they definitely hit right on. There was a good discussion about HP, and we wrote a CEO letter, Enrique Lores, on Friday, and it took him 2 days. On Tuesday, he announced that HP stops all business in Russia. Obviously, this is a difficult decision for the company. It's something like $5 billion business. I think impact is huge, because HP systems, if you look at HP, they're in telecoms and banks, then their space programs, and all of this is gone now, right? And this is just one company. And on Tuesday, it was on analyst call on Yahoo Finance. And some other examples, like Switzerland, for example. I think Switzerland broke neutrality in 200 years. You remember that during Second World War, Switzerland was totally neutral. And now they took the side of the country in conflict. And I think this was also because a lot of communication. It's not only myself. I think there is a group of people, probably close to 50 people doing this. So in Switzerland, we went to people in UBS, Credit Suisse, a lot of banks, some central bank people. And for Switzerland, the speed was unprecedented. Really, everything is so slow in Switzerland. Everything takes weeks or months. And here they really moved fast. So it was really unprecedented positive result for Ukraine. And I think now a tsunami of sanctions started. I think because this is a war, we really want to destroy economy, cancel it. And the impact of sanctions is really huge. So you could see companies being delisted from stock exchanges. If you look at some of those Russian oligarchs, take a look at Yandex, right? Yandex is listed London company, $15 billion. And the guy who founded Yandex was worth something like 3 billion. And now Yandex is delisted, so its stock is essentially waste paper. So 15 billion of Yandex is now zero. And a lot of other companies were delisted. If you look at stock of Sberbank, it's also close to zero now. And this is the biggest biggest bank in the country. So economic fallout is huge. I think the work is still on. I keep compiling names of companies that still work in Russia. Also, a good example is Binance. Once a lot of banks stopped payments in Russia, Binance, which is a big crypto processor, big crypto payment, we wrote letter to CEO, founder of Binance, and he stopped all business in Russia in something like 3 or 4 days. It was gone. So this is working. I think because of the scale and how big Russia is, it's still work in progress. It will take time. But for sure, they're facing economic fallout in trillions of dollars. They're facing, I would say, it's nuclear holocaust in economy, millions unemployed, country disconnected from all modern technologies, from future programs like fintech, Binance, etc. So this is what's happening, updates on the Facebook. I'm also in discussions about setting up renovation fund for Ukraine and identifying partners, including private and institutional companies that will participate, because I think as heart of this war and awful, we need to think about future. and rebuild in Ukraine.
Thank you. And I have one more question. Here in United States, many people have discussions that like Russian, like all companies who have employees in Russia, now they restructurize their companies because it's not like good news to have even employees in Russia when they trying to move in their employees from Russia to other countries. So do you see this in your sector? And secondly, also if we connect like conversation about oil and gas, which Irina mentioned in Europe, do you see which companies more active in this, like let's say trade ban, yeah, or going from Russia market? It's American companies or it's European companies, and maybe you will give some direct examples and also give to us examples how we can help it. So maybe go to demonstration against this company, or what's the main methods of like pressure to them to go from Russia.
On your first question, Katerina, some companies indeed, they do move out the employees from Russia. But then you have to look at the scale. And the scale, for example, like Credit Suisse, we used to have office, something like 1,000 people in Moscow, right? Now 90% of these people is gone. You look at all the consulting companies like PwC, KPMG, they used to employ thousands of people in Russia. Most of them is gone. So some companies do move out people, but to move out all staff is absolutely impossible, looking at the scale of what's happening. But also, if you look at automotive companies or dealerships, you know, they used to employ tens of thousands of people. But then you also look, so I think this is happening, but it's not going to solve the problem of Russian isolation. And obviously, it's not possible to move all employees from Russia. And then on the second question, oil and gas in Russia. Obviously, there are big oil and gas companies, and now all of them are delisted. This is number one. Then, if you look at technology side, a lot of Russian oil and gas relied on U.S. technology, specifically two companies, Schlumberger and Halliburton. You know, things like horizontal drilling technologies, things like exploration, etc. And these companies joined sanctions. So it means that Russian oil and gas will not have US modern technology. It's gone, done. And they cannot rebuild, obviously, themselves, because again, all the components are coming from US or Europe. And then we also lobby for oil embargo. I was in quite a lot of discussions. The problem is some of the dependence of European countries like Austria or Germany is so huge that I think these people are afraid to disconnect immediately from oil and gas. But I think it's important to apply pressure because I think it will take time. But many companies, they did cut contracts in oil and gas. I think a lot of deals are still done in places like India. They're buying Russian oil with huge discounts. There is specifically a company, India Oil and Gas. We're trying to apply some pressure on them via London. And then, of course, there are some dealings in Dubai because, like somebody said on the call, I think a lot of Russians moved to Dubai, including some businesses, and some of the Dubai banks, they continue working with Russia. But oil and gas embargo, we are calling for complete shutdown of Russia and isolation. This is still going on given the volume, but I think eventually we'll get there. We need to apply pressure. How to apply pressure? We write letters to CEOs. I think if you have some personal connections, always good to discuss, but also demonstrations. I think like this French retail chain, Auchan, they initially refused to remove from Russia. But then I think some of the employees in Kiev were killed and people started to demonstrate. And it took them a month, but they shut down operation in Russia. So this works. Definitely people realize it's immoral to work with Russia when this regime is in power. And I think HP made a nice statement that this is not compatible with practices of social and business responsibility, which was set as our basic principle set by our founders, and they made it official in the analyst call, despite huge loss of business. So people are making choices. I think there is no middle now. It's either black or white, right? One side or another.
True, and I know about many initiatives about like blocking Russian business, and also here in DC near White House, also on demonstrations, we mentioned that business must go from Russian market, and now it's also connected with like block all banks of Russia from SWIFT. Not only some banks, but all banks. Thank you, Eric, for your work. And
yeah, it's now, Katerina, not about business, but really about moral value, because they keep killing civilians or children, you know, committing these unimaginable crimes. And obviously now many people realize, you know, this regime, not only war, I mean, they want war to be stopped and peace and all people, you know, return back to Ukraine, but we want regime to be gone and having them accountable. And it's not obviously not only Putin, but a whole bunch of people around Putin, his war generals, maybe media, they all need to go to trial.
But also the same in Belarus. Yeah, also the same in Belarus.
Belarus, yes, Lukashenko, they're using Belarus to shoot rockets at Ukraine. He's a war criminal.
Yes. Thank you, Eric, one more time, and please share also. I add information about your projects also to description, but as other participants, also feel free to share this information to chat. And now we are looking for small comments from Alexander and Pavel, because they have also position about working on our initiative in Germany. So how they like have experience and how we do pressure to German people, like in this vector, or to have more refugees places, or to have more weapons from Germany. So please, and Alexander also have his projects in Kiev, with helping of with humanitarian aid, with territorial army. So please, Alexander, then Pavel. Yeah, I see also Wona, Andrei, and Vadim also wanna to have some comments after Alexander and Pavel. And in conclusion, we will have candle coffee speech and reflection, and also his explanation about Biden's program in legal way, how it works in the United States. So please, Alexander, firstly.
Have a nice day. Thank you for inviting.